She slid the papers across my kitchen table. The same kitchen table I had bought with my first salary. The same table where I helped her with homework for 12 years. She looked at me with patient eyes, the kind of patience you show someone you have
Looking
already
back,
decided is
the
too old to
most
understand.
important
And
thing
she said,
was
"Just
always the
sign, Mom. It's
connections we
easier this
made.
way." I looked at her hands. These same hands I had held crossing every road until she was 9 years old. These same hands I had watched shake on her wedding day. I looked at those hands, and I signed nothing.
Not the things
What
we
she did
owned.
not know, what nobody
We
in that
didn't
room
have
knew,
much
was
back
that
then.
12 years earlier, I had prepared for exactly this moment. She
But
said
we
just
certainly
sign.
had each
She
other.
forgot
I
I had
wouldn't
been ready
trade
for
those
this for
early years
12
for
years.
anything.
My name is Eleanor. I am 73 years old, and the house my daughter told me was now legally hers, I built it. Not with any inheritance, not with any husband's money, with 31 years of teaching mathematics to other people's children in a school that smelled of chalk and cold radiators. I bought the land when I was 38. The house took 4 years to build. I made every decision myself. Which windows, which
I
tiles,
remember the
which
summer of
tree would go beside the
1948
front gate.
vividly.
My
We
daughter
didn't
was
have
6 years
much,
old
but
when we
we had
moved
each
in.
other.
She
And
grew up in every room of that house. My husband Gerald passed 11 years ago. A quiet man, a careful man. Before he went, he sat with me at that same kitchen table and said, "Eleanor, keep every document, every receipt, every letter. Promise me." I promised him. I kept that promise for 11 years. And I kept something else he did not know about, something I had arranged 1 year after he passed, something my daughter was about to discover. She grew up in every room. She forgot every room had a history. My daughter's name is Sandra. I say this plainly because I want you to understand I am not speaking about a stranger. I am speaking about the child I fed at 3 in the morning, the child whose nightmares I sat with, the child I drove to university on a Sunday in September and cried the entire way home because the house felt too quiet without her. Sandra married well. Her husband Richard is an architect. They have a beautiful home of their own, 30 minutes away. For years, we were close. She called every Sunday. She visited for birthdays. She brought the grandchildren at Christmas. But 3 years ago, something shifted. I noticed it first in small things. The Sunday calls became fortnightly, then monthly. When she visited, she walked through my house differently, the way you walk through a place you are assessing, not remembering. She began asking questions. "Mom, have you thought about what happens to the house?" "Mom, Richard says property in this area has gone up significantly." "Mom, wouldn't it be simpler if everything was already arranged?" I answered each question politely. I revealed nothing, because Gerald had taught me something important. Documents speak louder than conversations, and I had very good documents. The week before Sandra brought those papers to my kitchen table, she called me. "Mom, I need to come over Saturday, just the two of us. There's something important we need to sort out." Her voice was careful, rehearsed, the way voices sound when the conversation has already been planned in another room.
Just one more sprinkle of cinnamon.
It looks incredible, Grandma. I can't wait to try it.
You've outdone yourself again.
Evening, and then I sat at my kitchen table. I opened the bottom drawer, the one Gerald had specifically chosen because it locks. I took out the folder, 12 years of documents, property deeds, tax records, payment receipts dated back to the day I bought the land, correspondence from my solicitor, and one letter, sealed, dated, signed, that I had written the year after Gerald died. I did not open the letter. I already knew what it said. I placed the folder back, I locked the drawer, and I went to bed. The best sleep I had in 3 years. She baked apple cake. She also unlocked 12 years of preparation. Saturday came. Sandra arrived at 11. She kissed my cheek. She sat at my kitchen table and ate the apple cake and told me the children were doing well and Richard's new project was keeping him busy. And then she opened her bag, and she placed a document on the table in front of me. "Mom," she said, "the house is already in my name. It was transferred 6 months ago. This is just the final paperwork." I looked at the document. I looked at my daughter. "Sandra," I said quietly, "which house?" "The house is already in my name." She had no idea what she had just said. "I want you to understand something." I was not surprised. I had suspected something like this was coming for 18 months. What surprised me, what genuinely stopped my breath for one moment, was how certain she looked, how absolutely certain, as if the conversation was already finished. She looked certain. That was her first mistake. I picked up the document. I read it carefully, the way I had read every document for 40 years. It was a transfer of ownership form. Sandra's name was at the top. My name was at the bottom, with a signature line beside it. Blank. "When was this drafted?" I asked. "6 months ago," she said. "Richard's lawyer handled it. It's completely standard." "And the transfer? The one you say is already done?" She shifted slightly in her chair. "There were some arrangements made, for tax purposes. It's complicated, Mom. That's why I'm here, to explain it and get your signature today." I set the document down. I folded my hands on the table. "Sandra, your father never made a verbal agreement about this property, because your father knew, as I knew, that verbal agreements about property are not legally binding. Your father was an accountant for 32 years. He understood documents." She looked at her tea. "Richard's lawyer said—" "Richard's lawyer," I said gently, "has not seen my documents." Richard's lawyer had not seen her documents. That changed everything. What Sandra did not know, what Richard did not know, what their lawyer did not know, was that 12 years ago, 1 year after Gerald passed, I had visited my own solicitor. Not because I suspected Sandra, not because I distrusted anyone, but because Gerald had asked me to, and I had promised him. I had done more than keep documents. I had done something that made those documents impossible to challenge. Sandra tried 3 more times, each time with a different angle. The tax benefits, the inheritance complications, what was practical for the grandchildren's future. Each time I listened. Each time I said nothing until she finished, and each time I said the same thing. "I understand, but I have not signed anything, and I will not sign anything today." By the 4th time, her voice had changed. The patience was gone. "Mom, this is already done. You don't understand how these things work." "Sandra." She stopped. I had not raised my voice. I never raise my voice. But something in the way I said her name made her stop. "I built this house when you were 6 years old. I chose every tile, every window, every tree in that garden. I paid for it alone for 4 years, while raising you alone after your father's first illness. I understand exactly how these things work." "On Monday," I said, "you will hear from my solicitor." Sandra left 30 minutes later. She had not touched her second cup of tea. I watched her car reverse out of my driveway, the driveway I had resurfaced myself 8 years ago because the council said the road outside was their responsibility, and I decided the driveway was mine. I cleared the table. I washed the cups. I dried them and put them back in the cupboard. Then I sat back down, and I made one phone call to a woman named Patricia, my solicitor, for 12 years. She answered on the second ring. She had been expecting my call. Patricia had been expecting her call. She had prepared for this too. I want to tell you about Patricia because Patricia is the reason this story ends the way it does. I had met her the year after Gerald died. I walked into her office with a folder of documents and said, "My husband told me to protect this property. Tell me how." She spent 4 hours with me that afternoon. She charged me for 2. And what we arranged in those 4 hours, Sandra's lawyer had no answer for. What they arranged in 4 hours, Sandra's lawyer had no answer for. 12 years ago, Patricia and I had done 4 things. First, we had the title deed formally re-registered in my name alone, with a legal note attached stating that no verbal or informal transfer claim could be made without a signed, witnessed document from me personally. Second, we had compiled and notarized every single document related to the property: purchase receipts, building contracts, tax payments, utility bills, insurance certificates, 40 years of paper proof that this house had one owner. Third, Patricia had written a letter on my behalf, sealed and witnessed, stating clearly that no arrangement had ever been made, verbally or otherwise, to transfer this property to any family member. Signed, dated, legally witnessed. And fourth, the fourth thing was the one Sandra's lawyer had not anticipated. 12 years ago, Patricia and I had placed the property into a legally structured trust, my name as the sole trustee, with specific provisions about who could and could not make claims against it. It was not complicated. Gerald always said, the simplest legal structures are the most powerful ones. He was right. He was always right about things like that. Patricia contacted Sandra's lawyer on Monday morning. She sent one document, the trust certificate. 12 years old, perfectly preserved, completely unassailable. Sandra's lawyer called Patricia back within the hour. Patricia told me later that the call lasted 4 minutes. The lawyer said 3 things. He said he had not been provided with full information about the property's legal status. He said the transfer filing would be withdrawn, and he said he was sorry for any confusion. Patricia said thank you, and then she called me. "Eleanor," she said, "it's done." I thanked her. I hung up. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. The same table, the same morning light through the same window. Everything exactly as it had been. It's done. 2 words, 12 years of preparation, 1 phone call. The letter Patricia and I had sealed 12 years ago, the one in my locked drawer, I had not written it for the lawyer. I had not written it as a legal document. I had written it for Sandra. In it, I had written everything I wanted her to understand about why I was protecting the house, about what the house meant, about Gerald, about the years I had spent in it before she was born and after she left, and in every season in between. I had written, "Sandra, if you are reading this, then something has happened that I hoped would not. I want you to know I am not protecting this house from you. I am protecting it for you, for your children, and for the version of you that I believe still understands what home means." I had sealed it, and I had kept it, waiting. On Tuesday, one day after Patricia's call, I drove to Sandra's house. I rang the bell. She opened the door. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen on my daughter's face before, something between shame and relief. I handed her the letter. "I wrote this 12 years ago," I said. "I think it's time you read it." She had written the letter 12 years ago. She had always hoped Sandra would read it. I did not wait for her to open it. I drove home. I made soup, the kind that takes all afternoon, the kind you make when you need your hands to be doing something while your mind is somewhere else. My phone was quiet for 4 hours. Then it rang. It was Sandra. She was crying, not the strategic kind of crying, the real kind, the kind I had not heard from her since she was a child. "Mom," she said. Just that. Just my name. And I knew. She had read it. People ask me, "Are you angry?" I think about that question, and the honest answer is no, not anymore. I was hurt. There is a difference. Anger is what you feel when something surprises you. What Sandra did, it did not surprise me. It hurt me because I had watched it happening slowly over 3 years, and I had hoped I was wrong. I was not wrong, but I had prepared. And preparation, when it comes from love, not fear, does not leave room for anger. Preparation from love does not leave room for anger. Sandra came to see me the following Sunday, alone. She sat at my kitchen table, the same table, and she did not bring any papers. We talked for 3 hours. She told me things I had not known, about the financial pressure she and Richard were under, about a business decision that had gone wrong, about how the house had seemed, to her, like the simplest solution. I listened to all of it. "Why didn't you come to me?" I asked. "If you needed help, why the papers? Why the lawyer?" She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Because I was ashamed to ask." I understood that, more than she knew. Pride is the thing that turns people who love each other into people who hurt each other. "You could have asked me," I said. "I would not have given you the house, but I would have helped you." She nodded. Her eyes were full. "I know that now," she said. Sandra's children, my grandchildren, came for lunch 2 weeks later. Thomas is 11. He has Gerald's eyes and his grandfather's habit of asking questions about everything. Clara is 8. She speaks in full sentences and corrects adults when they use words incorrectly. I watched them run in the garden, the same garden I had planted when Sandra was their age. The same roses, the same apple tree, older now, heavier, giving more fruit than it did 30 years ago. Thomas came and stood beside me in the doorway. "Grandma," he said, "is this house very old?" "Parts of it," I said. "The bones are 35 years old, but I keep adding to it." He thought about this seriously. "Will it be ours one day?" he asked. I looked at this boy, at Gerald's eyes in a young face. "Yes," I said, "when I'm ready, and when you are ready, and not a moment before." He nodded, satisfied. Children accept honest answers in a way that adults have forgotten how to. "When I am ready, and when you are ready, not a moment before." Sandra and I are not what we were. I want to be honest with you about that. Some things, when they break, do not return to their original shape. They mend, but the mended version is different, stronger in some places, more careful in others. We have dinner together on the first Sunday of every month. She calls more now, not every week, but more than before, and the calls are different, realer. She asks how I am, and she means it. Last month, she asked to see the documents, all of them, not to challenge them, to understand them. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table, and I showed her everything. The original land deed, the trust certificate, Patricia's letter, Gerald's careful handwriting on the earliest receipts. She held each one carefully. "He really did plan all of this," she said. "We both did," I told her, "from the beginning." There is something the world does not understand about women who have been quiet for a long time. We are not quiet because we are uncertain. We are quiet because we are ready. Every document I filed, every receipt I kept, every promise I made to a man at a kitchen table 11 years ago, that was not fear. That was love in its most practical form. If you are building something, a home, a life, a future, build it on paper as well as on trust. Trust the people you love, but keep the documents. Not because you expect betrayal, but because the people who love you deserve to inherit something protected. And if someone ever slides a paper across your table and says, "Just sign," take a breath. Read every word. Remember who built the table. Remember who built the table. If this story stayed with you today, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Grandma Diaries. I'll be here next week with more to tell you.